Coming up on this episode of SEVA TV, we help the homeless, interact with a deaf person, and learn our rights. Stay tuned for all this and more on SEVA TV. Hi, and welcome to SEVA TV. My name is Kelly Capps. We have an exciting show for you today that will teach you everything you need to know about social issues. Let's start the show off by talking a little about food insecurity.
It's about how children in many places get affected by food insecurity. There are many detrimental effects, and that there is a way to help it. And so what systems or organizations are in place to help it currently, and what can we as individuals do? Every night when families sit down for dinner or when we reach into the pantry to grab a snack, we often don't think about where the food comes from or whether there's enough for our next meal. Unfortunately, this is not true for many other families throughout the country and in our community. The U.S. Department of Agriculture defines food insecurity as a state in which consistent access to food is limited by a lack of money or other resources. 1 in 6 children in America face food insecurity. 20 million children access free reduced-price meals through school. In 2016, 41.2 million people lived with food insecurity. 6.5 million of them were children. In the state of California, 1.9 million children are food insecure. That means there is a total of 4.9 million people in California experiencing food insecurity. In the city of Sacramento, 242,830 people lived with food insecurity. 88,290 of them were children. This means that the child food insecurity rate was 24.4%. That is almost 1 in 4 children being hungry. Food insecurity even affects children in school. Let's take a closer look at our school, Del Paso Manor Elementary.
At Del Paso Manor Elementary School, we have about 68% of our students who are dealing with food insecure issues. Out of our 625 kids that go to Del Paso Manor, we have a little over 400 students who receive free breakfast and free lunch.
I believe that food insecurity affects students here at DPM. When they're coming to school hungry and they don't have any food in their bellies, they haven't had a nutritious breakfast, they're not able to concentrate in class and get the learning that they really need to get while they're here at school.
Food insecurity has a tremendous impact on students in school. Not everyone often thinks about this, but when you're hungry, you're not necessarily able to think, your stomach's growling, your mind is focused on being hungry and where your next meal is going to come from. In addition to that, students often know that lunch is their last meal that they're going to get for the day. They're not going to get food again until the next morning when they return to school.
Another challenge that we see when working with a lot of our clients is that they aren't able to manage their emotions as well if you don't have access to healthy food on a regular basis. So unfortunately, people can lose their temper more quickly. They can say things that they regret, and there are a lot of kind of negative outcomes that are tied directly to not having enough healthy food.
Every year it seems like the rate of food insecurity issues is increasing. So for example, this year at our school, our rate went up about 5% over the previous year.
So if the food insecurity rate is going up, what services are in place to help this situation?
CalFresh, which is food stamps here in California, and what that is that's a supplemental income for families that are having hard times. What we do is help them apply for the program, and then they receive dollars on an EBT card that they can use to buy healthy food for their family. Families can access food at no cost As the main food bank for Sacramento County, our organization is working with about 220 partner agencies, and those are church pantries, schools, food programs, where we're making sure we're getting healthy food options and then they're distributing it to families in need.
And so what we do is we have a commercial kitchen here, and we prepare hundreds of meals every single day. We serve at the beginning of the month anywhere from 300 to 400 lunches a day towards, and then towards the end of the month we might serve anywhere between 600 to 900 meals each day.
So my role at River City Food Bank is to provide food for those in our community who don't have the resources to buy healthy food.
We have a number of different programs within Loaves and Fishes here. The main one though is centered kind of around Friendship Park, where people will come to us when we open up each morning at 7 a.m. And a lot of times the first thing that people will do is they'll come in and they'll get a lunch ticket, and then they'll wait for their number to be called at lunchtime, and then once their number is called, then they go in and they get in line and they go through the food line, kind of like you would at your school cafeteria.
We also offer something called Produce for All. We have a retrofitted beverage truck that pulls up to 15 different locations in Sacramento. We roll up our doors and we actually can distribute fresh produce. Several hundred families can receive food in just under an hour, and we're on our way. We also have health and nutrition. That's where we teach health nutrition classes as well as classes in our demonstration garden, so people know how to eat healthy, prepare the food that they're receiving, pay attention when they're reading labels in the grocery store, etc.
So anyone who needs food would come to our place here from 11:30 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon, and we go through a very short interview process where we can help them with other resources, and then they take their bags and go through the place where our groceries are, and they get to pick and choose the foods that they want to take home and prepare. And then they choose those foods and they're on their way.
These organizations have a tremendous effect on people's life, but we as individuals can also make a difference.
There's so many ways that people can get involved. One easy way is to make a gift. Think about a financial way that you can give to make a difference in our community. Currently, $12 will buy a family of food, enough food for 3 meals for 3 days. So it's a great impact that somebody can make. They can give a financial gift. Another thing they can do is host a donation drive. Canned food, clothing, backpacks, you name it. We can drop off a barrel and at school, or a group can collect and we'll pick it up and give it to families in need. Another way that you can get involved is volunteering. The minimum age is 10. So there's a lot of 10-year-olds and up that can get out in there and become volunteers. We offer volunteer orientation once a week at either one of our locations. You can come down and get involved, and also participate in an event. That's a great way for people to become involved. Come out at Run to Feed the Hungry, or in November drop off a turkey during our annual turkey drive, or coming up in May there's a really great thing called Stamp Out Hunger. The United States Postal Service, the National Association of Letter Carriers, will deliver bags to your home. Put some canned food in that and leave it by your mailbox, and that will all come to Sacramento Food Bank and Family Services. We'll make sure that it's all throughout Sacramento County.
There was one time where someone went and purchased a ton of food from Chipotle. So all the stuff that people need to make a burrito, it came in big like vats. And so we had all this food, and it was just all set out so that we could kind of prepare the burritos ourselves and make the food right on the spot. So it was pretty neat when we had that.
We all need to be aware of the food insecurity crisis for our most vulnerable population, the children of Sacramento. What can we do? Sacramento is so fortunate to have organizations like the Sacramento Food Bank and Family Services, Loaves and Fishes, and the River City Food Bank. Let's volunteer, raise funds, help provide resources for our community. Let's be the change.
Homelessness is a big issue in today's economy. With over 2,000 people unsheltered in Sacramento, it is apparent that this is an issue that needs to be addressed. The students at Oak Hill Elementary investigated this issue further in the next documentary.
In my video, we try to teach people what homelessness is and what homeless people lack. I would like viewers to learn all the different perspectives of homelessness and that homeless lack resources.
I'm Jasmine. I'm Bailey, and I'm Addison. And here we are at HomeStart. What's HomeStart? HomeStart is a nonprofit organization that provides housing for homeless families.
We're not an emergency shelter like some other homeless shelters. We are a more permanent program. But when people come to live here at HomeStart, they're here for a year. You know, we don't want to leave somebody out on the street. If we have the space and the resources and the ability to help them, we're going to.
Okay, what services do you provide to your homeless?
So we only take people with children. And to all of our families, we do cater the program to their needs.
What are your main concerns about the homeless situation?
That's a big question. So I think the number one concern right now is the availability of housing. And some of the things that we're finding is that apartments and rental property managers are looking for families to make anywhere from 2 to 3 times the monthly rent, which for a single parent who's working full-time making minimum wage, they make about $16.80 a month. And most rents would require you to have almost double that. So that's a big challenge for a lot of our families. Even though they're doing everything right, they just still can't quite meet the standards to find their own housing. So sometimes that can be really discouraging.
Meet Tom. He had a career in the telecommunications industry. He got hurt on the job and worked with an orthopedic surgeon for 8 years, but was unable to work anymore. He has been sober for 25 years.
So, what do you think the leading cause of homelessness is?
Economy, the way it goes. There's always an influx in jobs.
Have you ever been to a homeless shelter before?
Tried to get into a few of them. They're so overcrowded. The waiting list is really long.
Have you ever heard of HomeStart before?
A couple of times. I've actually got something going on right now of trying to get into a place, so see how that happens.
Do you know what we can do to help the homeless?
Little things, actually. Blankets for some. I supply a lot of that stuff myself. Still today, but tents. Well, actually, camping around here is illegal. Supposedly, not federally, but I've had probably 13, 14 camping tickets. I went to the first one. It took me 11 minutes to get it thrown out of court.
How long have you been homeless?
For me, it's been about 6 years. So that's really not that bad, considering I haven't worked in 16.
What we learned from Tom. Talking to Tom helped us understand that many homeless people want to get better and go into a shelter, but this shows that they lack many resources to do this.
A few weeks ago, we sent the mayor a letter asking him a few questions about the homeless. He replied to us with a letter answering all of our questions. The first question we asked him was what his main concerns are about the homeless situation.
Currently, there are 2,052 people unsheltered in Sacramento, and it has become increasingly clear that there is an urgency to address this and reduce these numbers.
The next question we asked him was what his administration had done to help.
In 2017, we secured $64 million from the Whole Person Care Program for outreach and case management.
The third question we asked him was what other plans he has to help.
To housing 2,000 homeless individuals by 2020 and are continuing to work with public and private partners to address the health and safety needs of our most vulnerable community members.
The second to last question we asked him was why does he think people should be informed about the situation?
The first step in making this vision a reality is making sure that people are fully informed on the issues of homelessness and of the challenges of combating it.
The final question we asked him was
What can he or we do personally to help the homeless?
The best way for citizens to get involved is to volunteer time or donate items to organizations that do provide services.
Understanding homelessness isn't easy.
We hope this helped you understand.
Now that you know more, maybe you could be part of the solution.
That means hello in sign language. Did you know that there are other ways to communicate with a deaf person besides sign? In this next documentary from Arden Middle School, Kayleen Tharot will be exploring several ways to communicate without your voice. Let's observe.
Have you ever met a deaf person? Or maybe you know someone with a deaf person in their family. There are approximately 1 million deaf people in the USA alone, so it's important to know how to interact with deaf people. To start, make sure you know their method of communication. Against popular belief, not all deaf people speak sign language. There are people who speak orally, prefer to write, or use sign language. Also ask if they can read lips, which leads into the next step. If a deaf person can read lips, make sure you're facing them and making eye contact. Looking away is impolite and makes it difficult for them to read your lips. The next step is to be patient. Talking to a deaf person can be hard and frustrating, but if you want to be kind and make them feel included, then be patient. The last step is to try to learn sign language. There are deaf people who use sign language, and if you want to make conversation easier, one thing you could do is learn basic sign language. For example, the alphabet, deaf, hard of hearing, hearing, yes, no, my name is, and more. Remember, deaf people are humans too. With just a little bit of effort on your part, you can help them feel included.
The Second Amendment to the Constitution protects the right to keep and bear arms. However, we live in an era where this right gets abused and infringes upon our most basic and fundamental human rights. This documentary from West Campus High School brings up the question of whether we need to rethink the nature of the Second Amendment. Let's find out.
My name is Juliet Sidley.
My name is Ernest, and we go to West Campus High School.
And our film is titled Rethinking the Second.
The video is mainly based off of the tragedy that occurred in Parkland, Florida. We felt that since we were the exact age of some of the students, it was our duty to bring awareness to that issue.
We want viewers to kind of learn to just think for themselves and develop their own opinions on an issue and understand that they have a voice and they're empowered to do something about it.
Sometimes these things aren't in black and white, and there are many shades of gray in between in the gun problem in America.
I also think that video is an important way to express your voice, especially as young people. We should have this outlet to kind of get our thoughts and voices out there.
We've endured too many of these tragedies in the past few years. And each time I learn the news, I react not as a president, but as anybody else would, as a parent.
On February 14th, a gunman entered Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High with the intent of injuring and killing as many students as possible. Nicholas Cruz was only 19 years old, but yet he was able to stir pain and sorrow across a country that is still currently divided.
Really, anyone can get a hold of a gun, and that could lead to events like that happened in Florida. Everyone in the United States should try and convince their Congress representatives to at least put forth some kind of legislation.
It's a story we hear all too often of a disgruntled young man who decides that they've had enough and wreaks as much havoc as they can, unaware of the hundreds or even thousands of people they might be affecting. Within the past 5 months, 10 of the deadliest mass shootings have occurred, and lawmakers and politicians are still scrambling around, unsure what to do or even think.
We've definitely already lost many lives. Our country says that their priority is its citizens, but clearly it's not, because we've already had over 15 school shootings this year, and it already just shows you what our government thinks of us. Like,
although strengthening gun laws or improving school security might make it less likely for future events like this to happen, focusing more on the types of people that commit these acts would be a step in the right direction. Too many times, we hear about how easy it is to get your hands on a firearm rather than how easy it is for a firearm to fall into the hands of the wrong person. Most traits that these people share with each other are isolation, troubled homes, drug use, and being a victim of bullying. Rather than shunning these people during life and even after their death, a more healthier alternative would be to take notice of these patterns among these types of people and giving them the help that they so desperately need.
These students, they're using their voice, and I believe that these higher politicians should listen to them and truly see, like, these are lives at stake. It's not all about the money. It's not all about, you know, whose endorsements you're gonna get and how much money you're gonna get. It's about people's lives, and you can't really trade off money for the life of a human being, especially in America, where it's the common good that's supposed to be thought higher above anything else.
The freedom of speech is the First Amendment right of all American citizens, but every day this right gets violated. Maia thoroughly examines this issue in her documentary and seeks to understand how students are affected by it.
So my video is about the First Amendment right we have and how it applies to us as students. I hope people learn that what they do say, especially as minors, is more impactful in their future because we're held to a different standard. So I hope that influences the decisions people have in the future.
The First Amendment is everywhere. It's most commonly seen in public venues, in front of crowds, at school, in restaurants, and even on the internet. But what is freedom of speech, and where does this right come from?
The First Amendment says that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or of the right of people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances.
But what does this really mean? Generally speaking, the Constitution applies equally to everyone, regardless of age, color, race, religion, or any other factor. However, minors are a special category of person, and in many cases, the rights of a minor can be suppressed in many ways the rights of an adult simply may not be. The most common violations of a minor's rights are the rights of students. The rights of free speech, free press, free association, and from search and seizure are points of contention between school administrators and students and have been for decades. So how exactly can a minor's rights be violated in school? After all, the free flow of ideas in school is critical to students' growth.
Too often, all of these fundamental principles have been under assault. Even worse, some people who have exercised their First Amendment rights have themselves been assaulted. As a result, those who would curtail free speech have been emboldened, and those who disagree with the prevailing orthodoxy have been censored or chilled from speaking freely.
Personal opinion, in the United States of America, legally, we've altered the right of freedom of speech to almost an unrecognizable nature. For example, does speech mean money? So if I have a right to contribute to a political campaign, then the courts have ruled that speech equals money. Well, does that then mean that a person who's homeless and jobless has less right of speech than a person who's a billionaire? The courts have essentially ruled that because that billionaire can spend as much money as they want on political advertising, whereas the homeless person might not even be able to access, television that often. At the same time, recent extensions of the Supreme Court have passed that freedom of speech onto corporations, which is literally a non-human entity. It's a legal organization, but legally that corporation has the same right that I do to express its opinion, which then raises the question of, how does a corporation have an opinion? A corporation clearly doesn't have an opinion. A corporation then is expressing the opinion of some humans somewhere, but has been granted a right, and then because it's separated from the humans, now legally those humans have less of both a moral and a legal responsibility to the speech which they can express through the corporation. On top of that, the corporation's got money, so you combine the separate legal protection of a corporation with the monetary wealth of the corporation, and I think that, that all of a sudden now, what are we talking about? Right? We're no longer talking about a person expressing an opinion. We're talking about some convoluted, legal mess, which I think really loses the true value and meaning of freedom of speech. And morally, you can have that conversation, forever. And are we better off as a society protecting anyone from ever getting their feelings hurt, or are we better off from society having those opinions expressed and being able to have an open conversation?
The First Amendment is very clear. The Supreme Court has decided that offensive speech is protected, that speech cannot be restricted based on viewpoint, that public forums must be places where free speech rights can be exercised, and that prior restraint on speeches are highly disfavored. Otherwise, any speech that anyone found offensive could be suppressed. Little free speech would survive.
There's checks and balances within the government to allow free speech. For example, I remember some cases about somebody wanted to burn the flag and they wanted to make that illegal back, and I think it was during the Vietnam War, and I think they actually made a law that they couldn't burn the flag, but the Supreme Court came in and I believe struck it down, saying that's an expression of speech. It's a freedom of speech.
It is said that the First Amendment guarantees must be balanced against a school's need to keep order. As long as an act of expression doesn't disrupt classwork or school activities or invade the rights of others, it's acceptable and even beneficial to the school environment. The bottom line is, you have the right to express yourself, up to a point. And the search for that point is one of the most difficult searches of our generation.
Having freedom of speech means, I think it kind of presupposes your ability to think for yourself and to be able to form political opinion and to be able to weigh one side of an issue versus another side of the issue. And to do so, hopefully you have quality arguments, on both sides.
With the expansion of social media, it is impossible to get rid of any type of digital footprint that is inevitably created in the world. So although we as minors may have the right to express ourselves, both verbally and symbolically, we must be careful about what we choose to express. And if we don't, those same ideas that can be used to challenge and positively affect others in the classroom can also be a detriment to our future careers and livelihoods.
Well, if you have an opinion, you enjoy the right to freedom of speech. If you have an opinion about a meme or anything, you got freedom of speech. You go on the internet and you can write whatever you want on any blog or Twitter or whatever you want to do. That's all freedom of speech, and that's what the right to freedom of speech gives you, is your ability to express your opinion about anything you want. You guys use it a lot more than you think you do.
Essentially, exercising our First Amendment right is imperative to our growth into adulthood. By consciously choosing to utilize freedom of speech in a responsible manner, we take it upon ourselves to exercise the responsibilities our founding fathers entrusted us with. So speak up for what you believe in. Just make sure it's something worth speaking about.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's episode of SEVA TV. If you'd like to see more student videos or want to find out how you can enter into the SEVAs, check out our website at secctv.org. I'm Kelly Capps. Thanks for watching.